Bonjour, this is Jasmine. Thank you so much for stopping to smell the roses on Rue Madame. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood, I am a writer, a storyteller, and a community builder. I write about culture, politics, parenthood, and my life here in France. Thank you so much for those that support, my patrons. Shout out to you guys. I love you. And for those who share and comment and invite people to this page, I appreciate it. This video is about the 14 juillet. Le 14 juillet is the 14th of July in France, better known as Bastille Day. And it's a very big thing. I saw a couple of my Facebook friends mentioning it. I had a former French professor who talked about it too. For everybody else, it is marks the history of the French Revolution. And it's not necessarily the same as the 4th of July in the United States. But if you had to do a rough comparison as far as celebration and it being a public holiday, you can make a rough comparison or a rough equivalence, even though it's not the same history. So you have people celebrate it, you have fireworks, families getting together to eat, etc. But the difference, I think, between the two celebrations in the two countries is in France, I would say they are less expressive of their patriotism. Unlike in the United States, you have people with American flags on their houses and on their cars, and you wear red, white, and blue on the 4th of July. It's very festive. And here, it's festive also. You have people celebrating barbecues, etc. But you don't have that expressive patriotism, that outward need to, share that part of it, which is a little different. And I think it's not as popular, to in France to be like, oh yeah, Bastille Day. I don't think French people are really that geeked about, not like us, because first, for example, in the United States, you'll have sparklers for your kids, and you'll have fireworks that go off, small ones. Sometimes people have big ones. I saw in the United States that it was a big thing this year that fireworks was going off everywhere and people were complaining. And I think it had a lot to do with the protests and the pandemic and people just needing something to do. But in France, it's a lot different. It's a lot less explosive, which is probably the biggest difference. And also, for example, with the French flag, you'll see it occasionally on people's houses. It's not that uncommon. You'll see it, but it's definitely a lot less than in the United States. But also, there's a small history with the flag because in recent years, I mean in the last, 10, 15 years, the extreme right political party, the extreme right in France, have kind of like hijacked the French flag and took it as their like logo or whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of like a little taboo to a certain extent, even though, a lot of people just put on their house just to say, I love France, but it's being used in different ways. Also, just another side note, when we were in Normandy, I did a video about our weekend in Normandy. We went to the beach. We went to the American Cemetery, which was really nice and pleasant. We paid our respects there. And you saw a lot of American flags. It was just like, oh my God, am I in America right now? But there was American flags. There was a museum. It's a very historical little section of Normandy, and it's not very big, but you'll see flags and French and American and other, I guess, flags that were allies of the war too, which I thought was interesting. I thought it was amusing to see that. I was like, oh wow. My relationship with 14th of July here in France. My first time even coming to France, it was a summer abroad in 2011. In 2011, and I was here for 6 weeks. I was bright-eyed, young, and it was summertime, so I just Paris was my oyster. I had a lot of fun. But the 14th of July, a friend of a friend showed me around town, and we went to the big celebration there at the Eiffel Tower. So we went. I didn't know really what to expect. I'm thinking it's kind of a lot like a celebration in the United States, big fireworks and everything. But it was like, oh my God. It kind of reminded me of when I went to New York City to watch the ball drop. That's another video. I'd love to share that story too. But as far as the amount of people that was there, the amount of trampling and commotion, going through the metro system, taking the train, it was kind of the same vibe. But it was just so many people. It was late at night, and the trains were like free, so you could just go in, come out. And I think it was just for that section of Paris that it was just herds of people. It was really, really fun. But the Eiffel Tower was kind of like the centerpiece of this spectacle. It was phenomenal. And that kind of stuck with me, the 14th of July in France, the Bastille Day. So that was my little story about that. As far as us celebrating the 14th of July in 2020 in the social unrest that we're in now, it's kind of the same mood I had in the recent video I did about the 4th of July and how it's kind of being snuffed out a little bit, or just left to bed. We don't have to erase history. We're not erasing history. We're just leaving it there, and putting the light and kind of turning the light to our history of Juneteenth. So in France, the same thing. The 14th of July, let's see, so I can get the dates right. So the 14th of July, the revolution, the slavery wasn't abolished at the time. So the French Revolution took place between 1789 and 1799. So that was a period where there was a lot of chaos and upheaval. And to be honest with you, I was thinking to myself when I was looking up the history of the French Revolution, that was the 10-year period. Imagine what we're going through now lasted 10 years. The protests, the kicking down statues, the laws being reviewed and improved, social discord concerning race, relations, etc. Imagine if the intensity lasted 10 years. I think that would change the dynamic of the world, not just the United States, because I was talking to my husband just today about this, and how since there's a spotlight on the United States and they are the center of most popular culture world news, anything that happens there's always a ripple effect. And I guess that's the case for any country, not just the United States, but the waves are so big that it's always very tense and intense, the reaction to whatever happens over there. So imagine 10 years of social unrest, protests, sit-ins, companies shouting Black Lives Matter, even if it is for marketing reasons. But just imagine this for 10 long years. I would then have some hope for my kids and the next generation if the scrutiny and the demand for justice was that potent. For 10 years, I'd be like, okay, I'm not that worried for my son. I'm not that worried for my daughter. I'm still worried, but we are come a long way. I think even our ancestors, descendants of slaves, the 60s, just all the way up until now, I think if this lasted for 10 years, they would be proud of us. And it's so funny. I'm thinking of the Boondocks episode where I think it was Huey or Riley and the episode of Martin Luther King Jr. What would Martin Luther King Jr. say now if he was still living? I think he would be a little more proud and what's the word I'm looking for? Optimistic. I'm optimistic if that was a 10-year, if this is a 10-year thing. You know, you have Black businesses being shouted out. Rue Madame is here promoting and highlighting Black interesting people. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation we had about our names. Check that video out. I love my participants. Thank you so much. It was a really great conversation, our names and how that's important. But yeah, 14 juillet in France. But good thing here is the abolishment of slavery is already a day here. It's already recognized as, national holiday. It's not celebrated nearly as much as it should or given the attention it should. I kind of feel like the French reserves that for the Blacks that are in the country. Like, oh, that's your day. Instead of it being all of our days because their ancestors were a part of that history as much as ours. So it's that separation, how, that amnesia that a lot of people have about the realities of the past. Now that I think about it, we celebrated the 14th of July and was invited to a friend's house only once. And it was for her birthday because it happens to fall on the same day. Shout out to you, Doris. But yeah, other than that, I don't think the day is particularly special. But speaking of the 14th of July, I would like to talk a little more about French history, but focusing on and centering the Black history that we never hear. And I'm sure a lot of people in my audience don't hear a lot about Black French people and their history. So my patrons will get that bonus content. I'd like to discuss Alexandre Dumas. He's a well-respected personality in French history. He is the writer of The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers. So yes, it was a Black writer at the time. But yeah, head over to patreon.com, join the community, support a writer, check out the creative writing and the interesting people that I've interviewed. Thank you so much for your support. Hopefully you're enjoying Rue Madame, and feel free to give me your suggestions and any ideas that you'd like to see. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.